coaching, we kind of run through the prime performance process. So making sure that we are looking good, feeling good, and doing great things as individuals and teams. To look good, you really got to have that confidence and that resilience. With entrepreneurship, there's going to be ups and downs almost on a day-to-day basis. But as you scale up into the organizations, those swings of ups and downs become bigger because so many more people are involved and are impacted by the different swings that happen. So having that resilience, but then also developing that intentionality behind the different types of inputs and actions that you're taking.
Hi and welcome. I'm Walter. I'm the Dutch mentor, and welcome back to the podcast, the Smart Performance Podcast, where S stands for self-care, M for mindful growth, A for adaptive learning, R for rhythmic operations, T for thriving community, and P, of course, for performance. I'm really happy to have Rob back with me today. Actually, I was on his show not too long ago, and we had a great conversation and thought we'd maybe carry it forward into my podcast. So this is a world about give and take, about sharing knowledge and experiences. And as a fellow coach, he certainly has a unique way of looking at things. So today, for the audience, we're going to dive into rhythmic operations. So we're going to assume that you already have been optimized as a leader to lead a great team. So we want to really understand, what does it take to set a team up for performance? So before we get started, Rob, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll dive right into it.
Of course. Well, first of all, Walter, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to kind of continue the conversation and see where we dive into with this conversation itself. And for those who don't know me, my name is Rob Tracz. I'm a high performance coach, host of Surviving the Side Hustle podcast, keynote speaker, and workshop facilitator. And I'm traveling around the country, leading workshops and speaking on stages, really helping young professionals who've been excited about starting a side hustle or who have already started a side hustle but have quickly fallen into the trap of just creating a second job for themselves. Help them avoid burnout by optimizing their processes and becoming the prime performer to really enjoy life and that second source of income for what they've really set out to originally establish by starting their side hustle.
So before we dive into, because obviously you need to have a high performance team yourself and team in order to get to where you are, what have you done in your life to give you the credibility to be able to coach and teach and speak on this particular topic?
Yeah, so a lot of different things. So it's like a lot of great successful communicators and coaches, you pull from a lot of different experiences. For example, my background in strength and conditioning, I had over 10 years as a coach, leading lots of different sports teams and individual team players, I should say. And as I've continued to grow and evolve as an individual, so too has my coaching. So as I'm no longer in the weight room quite as much as I used to be, a lot of those skills and strategies, I should say, about great performance improvement and enhancement in the gym have translated over into the entrepreneurial world. And although I'm not working with quite as many athletes as I used to, now I'm working with industry athletes who are juggling different stressors and different accomplishments, milestones, and tasks that are set out on a day-to-day basis. And through different organizations that I'm associated with, like, for example, Warm Heart Life is this one company that teaches public speaking around the country. And this other organization called Art of Coaching that really hones in on one-on-one communication, but conflict resolution and navigating power dynamics. And with that one organization, Art of Coaching specifically, we work with a lot of high caliber organizations such as like Microsoft, Apple, and most recently was the Boston Red Sox.
So thank you for laying that foundation, because I think it's important that you obviously work with high performing individuals and teams. So let's talk about, what does it take to set up a high performance team? Dive into that. What are the secret ingredients?
For me specifically, with my coaching, we kind of run through the prime performance process. So making sure that we are looking good, feeling good, and doing great things as individuals and teams. So what does that mean? To look good, you really got to have that confidence and that resilience really to handle a lot of the ups and downs. Specifically with entrepreneurship, there's going to be ups and downs almost on a day-to-day basis. But as you scale up into the organizations, those swings of ups and downs become greater because so many more people are involved and are impacted by the different swings that happen. So having that resilience, but then also developing that intentionality behind the different types of inputs and actions that you're taking and creating. So from where the early days of just purely paying attention to the nutrition with the athletes to now paying attention to the digital nutrition as well. So as individuals, what is the type of content that you're consuming? Are you listening to great podcasts like this where you're being inspired and learning? Or are you just spending your time just drowning out the noise with some music that whatever is the most popular thing on today? Or are you actually building yourself up? And moving into that feel good kind of phase, it's all about that clarity. Honing in on your values, your lifestyle, the aspirations and growth opportunities, and then also optimizing that, which I think we're going to dive into a little bit now. And how do you create the systems and build the efficiency so that you can get to those goals at a smoother, faster rate? And then finally, that doing great things phase is all about support and influence, being able to communicate one to many, but also one to one. And having that support to fall back on when things are tough and celebrate when things are great, but then also the skills that you can use to develop the influence to create actual positive impact instead of just using these skills for negative. And then finally, that opportunity creation of really making yourself look like an overnight success.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. I've shared my 5 fundamentals is having the right people in the right roles, making sure that we're truly unified in our cause, that we have meaningful measures, we have a cadence of accountability, and that we take action. So I want to start at the first 2. How do you ensure that we have the right people in the right roles, that they have the skills, knowledge, and abilities and time to do the job well? And obviously, whenever you put in a collective of people together, you're going to have hopefully diverse opinion, good dialogue. But how do you bring them together to lead with a common cause?
Well, much like the podcast here with SMART, the first letter being self-care, I'm going to alter it just a little bit. I think the first step is self-awareness and being able to, one, being aware of yourself, your communication styles, your goals, your drives, your motivators. But then once you have those, you move it on to your team. So if you're in the hiring process, you got to know what's motivating them, what are their communication styles, how can you appropriately get them to move and towards the same common goal. And how do you make sure that they're aligned? By going through the values, assessing what kind of communication styles that they've got, and then tailoring the way that you communicate so you're on the same page with that communication and moving forward. From there, it's all about just building up from there, game planning, and then looking at the next steps down the road.
So thank you for that. And how do we know that the team is actually performing?
By looking back on the metrics and saying, okay, here's our goal. This is what we want to achieve. Now, what is it that we need to do in order to get to that goal? Shifting from that outcome goal into the process goal. So what is the day-to-day? What are the commitments? What are the lag measures that we're checking after? And what are the lead measurements that we got to be doing on a day-to-day basis? Are we hitting those numbers? Yes, no? Do we need to change something? If not, is it somebody that needs to change? Can somebody be beneficial in a different role or situation or not? Or it's all coming back to that self-awareness and, hey, how is this as an organization? How is this as a team? How am I doing as a leader and a role model and as a player, a part of this team?
So thank you. So interesting enough is that people want to get the outcome, and they don't always want to put the work into it. So when I speak about the cadence of accountability, I really speak to the behavioral capacity of individuals to actually do the work necessary to build upon the base to get closer to that outcome. Along the way, you're going to have conflict between people, and you're going to get people who just don't show up. How do you counter it? How do you manage that as a leader in order to be able to make sure that everybody, and there are no free riders?
Yeah, it's going to be kind of checking in and having the system on the check-ins and making sure that you're not only checking in on the performance measurements, but also on the personal metrics as well. Have you been pushing your employees or your coworkers to such extremes where they're getting closer to burnout? Are you systematizing your recovery? Are you allowing for rewards and downtime? Or are you placing these systems and approaches and strategies in place so that you can avoid the downfalls when conflict arises? And it is going to arise, because if you don't have any conflict at all in your business, then you are probably in some kind of la la land, because something is always going to happen between people, between customers, and just how the business runs itself and how you show up prepared for the conflict when it does arise, and having the systems and strategies in place to handle those. So when things do go awry, how do you communicate? How do you express yourself? And how do you calm the heat if there is a lot of heat in the situation?
So it is, people are funny, right? Is that, and all the different dynamics. I had a really good conversation the other day with somebody. Is that I too believe in flattening the hierarchy, right? Is that to have more that peer-to-peer rather than top-down, bottom-up approach. And he talked a little bit about the intellect of the collective, right? Is that so in a team, right? I don't care if you're a small team or a large team. It's really the power of the collective. So how do you get the team members who might be neurodiverse or introverts to participate in team events and actually unlock some of their their magical powers or insights, compared to the people who are the alpha personalities who will even speak if they have nothing to say?
Yeah. This goes back to just like the one-on-one kind of communication skills and influence. And I use this framework that I created called skills. So social skills when you're interacting with people. And if you follow through the framework, S is survey. So make sure you know who the person is. Like you have the list of your team, creating some sort of a database or understanding of, if you have a smaller team, just have the list of people together. K is knowing their goals, their drives, and knowing them inside and out, their values. I is initiating the conversation. So making sure that you have the time planned to check in, see how they're doing, to cut off conflict before it happens, so that you can tend to expectations or unmet expectations even ahead of a schedule. And then once you initiate the conversation, the first L is listen. So many times leaders get into these positions or roles and they just go, talk. But great leaders know how to listen, and listen intention with and hearing what they're actually saying, active listening and paying attention. And then once you're done listening, you move to the second L, which is leverage. So you're going to leverage the strength of the individual. You're going to leverage your resources, your knowledge, your understanding of the team, and see how you can fit things together to prepare in advance for the systems or the game plan or the conversation that has to happen down the road. And then finally, the last S is strengthen. So make sure that you have a routine for checking in on all of these things and all these people, so that you nurture these conversations and these relationships with everybody, so that they can show up for the different meetings and tune into the different events, or show up for the certain projects in ways that they are positioned best to serve with their strengths.
Very good. Good job of outlining the key ingredients. Tell me a story about a team that you have worked with that went from that beginning stage, assembly, court, and into a performance state, and what was the outcome, so that gives something to the listeners to relate to something.
Yeah, so there was a smaller team out in Arizona, I believe it was. It was a car dealership, and they brought us in because there's a lot of younger guys and there was a lot of older guys. And some of the older guys are just kind of shipping it in, and some of the younger guys are excited to show up, but then almost afraid to put a lot of effort in, with the fear of maybe some of the older, more senior people kind of teasing or kind of more nonchalant. So management and leadership brought us in to kind of create better culture and buy-in there. So we brought everybody in, was teaching a little bit about communication styles and how to connect better with each other, and really dove into everyone's inspiration and what they were working together. We played a bunch of different improv games that got everybody out of their shell and out of their like, oh, I'm too cool to participate kind of thing. Brought some camaraderie into the whole scene. But then we shifted focus into more like player profiling, building up the idea of each individual, some of their like target avatars almost, and then we worked together, putting people in different roles even, so that they had chances of playing other people in the office. And that kind of allowed them to get different perspectives on how other people were working, what other people were working towards, and that created better culture amongst the team and started to allow them to work together, because some of the older guys were then getting used to some of the younger guys and vice versa, and they began to work more as a system as opposed to just a bunch of individuals like showing up for one team. They started working and operating as one unit instead of multiple pieces.
Okay. So it's funny you say that, because I was reminded as a young man, sit down, shut up, learn to relate, don't compare. And that is the difficulty, right? Especially with the generational differences that we have. 50-year-old thinks very differently from a 20-year-old. But when we find commonalities, we find things. I love that shield exercise. It's so basic. A piece of paper, 6 blocks, everybody writes down or draws in what they value in life. And then they present it, and often 2 to 3, maybe even 4 of the things people can relate to, and they always start to get to know each other on a more personal level. Therefore, they can be more empathetic and more understanding. Then to draw out those strengths that they each can have, which can be 1 + 1 is 3 if they become synergistic. So it's really good at that. Anything else that we have left out of the conversation that you feel like needs to be added to it to really get people to understand what it takes to be a high performance team?
Yeah, I think just there's put a lot of emphasis on action and move, go, 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 go. And I think one of the most important actions that leaders can take is to kind of slow down and reflect more consciously. So same thing as we were kind of sharing before about like checking in with the team and everybody else and making sure that they're not overworked or that they're not underworked, and making sure you're playing to their strengths. The same thing for yourself too, like making sure that you're checking in with yourself, reflecting on, hey, how am I doing? How are these deadlines? Am I taking time for downtime? Am I taking time for creativity? Because I'm a big fan of that saying of like 1 step back, 2 steps forward. Like taking some breathing time to move forward at an exponential rate really folds back in a multiplied state.
Excellent. Where can people find you, Rob?
Yeah, the best place to connect with me is on social media. Instagram and LinkedIn is where I hang out the most. It's easily just searching my name, or over at my website, robtrazy.com. And if anybody here is interested in with their side hustle, trying to get that rolling, I created a free resource for everybody, my 5 keys to clarity and momentum for a successful side hustle. And you can find that at survivingthesidehustle.com/5 keys.
Thank you very much for joining me today and for giving that out. I think that, I love the hustle myself too. That's how I got started into more the entrepreneurial side after, good 40 years of working for somebody. It's not for everybody, but if you have that little itch, I would encourage you to certainly explore that. And doing it as a side hustle is a great way to get started. We all have something to give. And there's, to me, the philosophy is this. If our podcast today can have a positive impact on 1, 2, 3, 4 people, by just a couple of key takeaways, then my job is done for the day. Rob, thank you very much for joining me today. Look forward to continuing the conversation. Good luck with all that you do. And audience, thank you. And we'll see you again at the next podcast. Have a great evening.